It's the Sod Pod, brought to you by Grassland Agro. The Sod Pod. Hello, and welcome to the Sod Pod. This is episode 2 of season 2. I'm here with Davy Corbett and John O'Loughlin, and we're joined by a special guest, John Brennan from Tirlán, Senior Business Manager of the East Region. John, how are you going?
Very good, James. Thanks, lads.
You're more than welcome on the show, John. We're here in your kitchen at the moment. We've got a lovely cup of berries, tea and a couple of snacks.
Full of snacks there for John, will you? John O'Loughlin now, John O'Loughlin.
John has 4 pig snacks in already and 2 in the pocket.
You were on farm. Farm this morning, Dave. Gathered around his ankles.
That was a 12-pack when we started, lads. Where did it go?
So, John, how are you going? Talk to me.
Good, lads. No, thanks for the opportunity here for the chat. Yeah, so I suppose we're probably here to cover maybe a couple of different aspects. I suppose the kind of my involvement in the agri-industry is twofold. I'm the Senior Business Manager with Tirlán, and I'm also, for my sins, wasn't able to make it as a full-time farmer, so I'm a part-time farmer also.
Yeah, you could be safer, I think, John.
Absolutely. So under no illusions, and remind myself probably twice a day, every day, Tirlán paid the mortgage around here. So
yeah,
we need to be cognizant of that in the day-to-day actions. Absolutely.
But John, in Tirlán, you've kind of, I suppose, had a journey within the organisation as well. It's fair to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I suppose it's a kind of a long-winded when we'll do the whistle-stop version of it. And I actually never worked for any other company. I'm 23 years in 23 years in the organisation.
So you must have started when you were 13.
Absolutely. Yeah. In fairness, the quality of the Just for Men dye has improved a bit. It's not so long ago. I remember I used to get my hair cut because it was too long, but now it's actually to cut out the grey. So it's
I'm in the same boat.
It's a touch of an
David
evolution.
Corbett and James are just holding on to a little bit on top while they have it, like, I think is fair to say.
Fine fresh heads of hair over here.
That one did not go down well. No, there was some seriously dirty looks there now. But it was deserved, John. I meant to say that one about the boys for a long time.
I'm sensing the tone.
We'll have to take a picture of all our heads, Jim, and put up on the socials.
I got the haircut yesterday. All ideal. John, Tirlán, what's the crack?
Yeah, so I suppose my job in Tirlán is I'm Senior Business Manager for the Ruminant East area, so covering predominantly the east of the country from a branch perspective. People that be familiar with the geography, coming from Ashford down to Clonroach and over to Ballytor, that triangular area of the country. So myself and 6 additional business managers cover that area, so predominantly looking after ruminant-based customers and any of the requirements that they would need. So, typically calling to people about feed, fertiliser, general agri-inputs, whatever's topical then at the time of year, whether that be chemicals, grass seeds, silage wrap, hardware, all the kind of full components. So each of the business managers would be responsible for, on average, about 200 customers each, and fully, responsible for the all inputs and from top to toe of that farm requirements.
Yeah, and John, I suppose within your role in Tirlán, you kind of have a special area of interest in relation to animal health as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I suppose each of the senior business managers, there's 5 senior business managers in total covering the full geography of the country, and each senior business manager would have a separate project portfolio that they'd look after, and mine is the veterinary one of that. So typically that would have been organising sales campaigns, end of year housing events and different things like that were topical during the year. But I suppose it has probably kicked on to a whole new level and a whole new gear in the last probably 18 months to 2 years with the proposed veterinary legislation and the big impact that that's going to have at farm level. That's
massive, John, because I suppose, lads, we're probably, in our game, we're more focused, even though we have an animal nutrition side of the business, on what's more immediate in the fertiliser. But like the two parts of that, and the veterinary and the fertiliser, are coming together, and there's a huge amount of challenges and changes in that as well, it's fair to say, John.
Yeah, absolutely. Seismic changes. We would have held a number of in-store events events throughout the year because of the proposed legislation. Implementation date was scheduled to come at 2 or 3 different times during 2022, but inevitably got postponed each of the times. But we would have had a lot of people coming in, and we would have asked the question about how was it going to impact individual farms, individual herd programs. And what was frightening was that we actually created a survey, just a verbalised survey of the people that attended those events, and 80% weren't actually so sure of the full impact of it was going to have on their farm, or how they were going to attain the medicines, or the requirement for a herd health plan, or to be involved in a herd health program, the role that TASA was to play, the requirement for fecal egg count analysis, a huge amount of different components that people weren't actually aware of the impact they were going to have.
And more necessity now, John, around Board B and farmers registering for Board B. So that's going to make farmers, I suppose, document what's happening on farm going forward.
Absolutely, and it's amazing. It's one of the key call-outs, Dave, that we kind of heard from people as well, that people were actually looking for a singular supplier of product to be compliant. And one of the key call-outs that when we were trying to put together the service that we could offer to farmers to be able to facilitate their requirements at farm level was to be able to create reporting based on that data, the product, the batch number, the withdrawal date, of all that kind of good stuff. Because what we're finding more and more at farm level is that kind of common comment that gets thrown back to me is, sure, I could spend a day a week at paperwork. So it's to actually have a singular focus on where that product is coming from.
It's unfortunate too, John, because there's a lot more strain on farmers, and probably by default that strain is going to fall back on Tirlán as well.
Yeah.
Like farmers are going to be a lot more reliant on yourselves. Yeah,
because I see it myself, and I said, unfortunately, because of my longevity in the game, I've seen the change. But
experience.
Is that what we're calling it now? Okay. But I would have called it probably 5, 6, 7 years ago that there was probably 3 key influence or hampers on farms on the expansion or what they wanted to do, and that was land, labour and money. And I would think that probably, I know people can talk about the rate per acre there at the moment, but the land and the money aspect has definitely freed up in the last number of years. But a thing that has got progressively worse week on week, month on month, is the availability of labour. It's absolutely a massive strain on farms.
It's huge. I couldn't agree more. And you see that there's been work permits granted for non-nationals, and people are crying out to get them onto farm. It's trying to attract people into agriculture is very important, and that whole sustainability piece is not just in relation to the environment and birds and bees. It's down to lifestyle as well. And some lads are killing themselves, John.
Absolutely. And I'm just reminded of a funny one. I was with a farmer a number of weeks ago, and he was telling me that he got a new chap came in onto the farm, and I said, how's he going? He said, he's absolutely a dinger. He said, he's top class. He has hit the ground running. And he says, I just feel so bad. And I said, why do you feel so bad? He said, I went to the discussion group and they said, how was he getting on? I said, I told him he was only okay because I was afraid they'd poach him on me.
It's mad, isn't it? Yeah, they don't want to be praising him too much, but it is a big challenge though, in fairness, isn't it? But
you have to make them part of the system. You have to be open to ideas and what they can bring to it. You actually made a comment there before, John. I thought it was a great one. Is sometimes I know it's pet peeve anyway, but farmers referring to someone working on the farm as a labour unit.
Yeah, that rots me now, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think in fairness, that people are coming in, if you want them to have a vested interest, and that's probably not just within the agri sector, probably the days that of people just want to clock in a 9 to 5 and just do that. There is a certain cohort of people absolutely happy to do that, but people want to be able to progress. They want to feel valued, and they want to know that there is a long-term future, or that there is a chance of progression, involvement, whatever the personal individual wants. We have to be able to create those opportunities for those, because labour is a massive problem, and it's not going away. It's only what worse it's going to get.
No, and there's ultimately there's only so much that automation can do as well. There's, because of our farm systems, we're saying that maybe robotics or whatever are the answer, but it's not really the case. That's for these massive herds of 10,000 cows over in America, where those things really work. In an Irish context, milking 70 or 80 cows, you can't automate everything, and then do farmers have the skill set as well is another thing, like,
Yeah, absolutely. And I say, we've probably been a certain amount, we've been the creators of our own downfall as well by kind of creating the efficiencies that we've done on farm level. Like we've had 6 and 8 week calving intervals, where there's a huge amount of cows. I actually spoke to one individual customer yesterday and he told me he had 22 cows calved on Sunday, like. That's 1 an hour, lads. I don't know what I mean. In any man's language, like, I wouldn't be able to tag 1 an hour. Like, how did he even get it done? Like, it's a phenomenal workload. Like, and on his own, like, as well. Like, so, like that's that kind of stuff is not sustainable, and it's you're probably looking for trouble, and you're going into farm safety issues and things like that because people are just absolutely exhausted as well, like, so we just need to be cognizant of that.
Definitely. And even like that, I suppose the increase in 6 week calving rate has put pressure on facilities as well. And sometimes what I see is that from an animal health point of view is that there's such a quantity or a stocking rate going through a calf shed or something like that, because if you go into any old farm and you see the calf shed, John, you'd hardly be able to stand up in it, like, small low roofs. And now because there's but there was probably only 2 calves in it.
That's the thing.
But now when you have these big sheds and big numbers, like you can get, but the point is it can go very wrong very quick.
That's the trouble.
And you see that.
Yeah, it's grand when it's working fine, but if it's not working fine, and just say for all that calf shed that these guys that have 50, 100, 200 cows calving within an individual month, you get an outbreak of a crypto or something like that, like, you know what I mean? Like, I was talking to a man the other day and he said to me, he says, if them kind of things you have to allocate at least 20 minutes per calf, like, and you just think that the hours are just not in the day for that, like, so when it goes wrong it can go spectacularly wrong. So absolutely.
Yeah, and a lot of that is down to vaccination. I know you do a lot in relation to putting stuff up on the Tirlán Farm Life website, doing lots of webinars and information events as well, and on-farm events. But that's key, like, isn't it, to try and go down that prevention route rather than curative.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think it's a common statement is out there that the start is everything, in particular with calves. Do you know what I mean? So how we actually manage those calves, the colostrum management of cows, and even to go a step further, lads, it actually starts when we dry off the cows. Do you know what I mean? And then the actual dry transition period and the dry cow nutrition, the minerals that those cows are fed, then the calf is born, how that calf is actually dealt with, you know what I mean? The simple things like that, that the disinfectant is going on the navel, that the cow is getting, or the calf, is getting the adequate colostrum, and that they're going to a nice, dry, clean environment. Like, do you know what I mean? There's a lot of little links in the chain, and sometimes, that we just get engrossed in the work for the sake of work. So it's actually to make sure that we have the checklist and the to-do list that these things are actually happening.
And that's a big thing, and consistency probably is a huge one as well, John, isn't it? Doing the same things all the time and doing them fairly right.
Absolutely, and that probably goes back then to the labour piece then as well. Do you know what I mean? Maybe a father-son relationship or a relief milker and stuff like that. That's when we notice that things can potentially go wrong if there's someone in that different that day. But to go like the likes of those calves, dairy heifer calves that are born on the ground today, like, for those to calve down at 2 years of age, to average damn close to 0.7 of a kilo for every day of their life. So there's absolutely no opportunity further to be missed time or missed days there. Every day is a target, and that target has to be achieved and attained to be profitable.
Definitely. And I suppose, John, you work very closely with your colleagues on the milk quality side as well, like, and that's very important to, trying to keep that standard up, because you are a cooperative, and trying to get the best quality product into the processing plants is key.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we would like when the change from Glanbia to Tirlán and to a full co-op type structure, we noticed that we have a responsibility to our milk suppliers, our shareholders, to do the best by them day by day. So even just something as simple in the last couple of days, we've made an announcement there as well that we're coming to support our milk suppliers with their dairy hygiene and tea care requirements. So we've had a substantial price reduction with an additional rebate to be credited to accounts later on in the year, and coupled with that then as well, we were offering the facility of an extended credit offering for that product as well. So we see that that the correct product being used correctly at the right usage rate, and has to be the complete cycle to make sure that the plant and the tank is cleaned correctly, hence resulting in the best quality milk that we can sell to our end users.
Absolutely, because sometimes, like, I suppose people could be tempted to go with maybe a slightly cheaper product, and things can kind of get away with it for a small little while, and then you get an explosion or a problem, and then, you know, you're into real corrective actions, and you're into more problems with, you know, cell count and you name it, and like, that's a big challenge. Like, that's the cell count piece is a big challenge.
It's a huge bull to bust too, Tirlán. This announcement is massive. As I say, it's hot off the press this week, and a huge number of you were involved in getting this over the line. And like, we're talking substantial price reductions to your milk suppliers, and I think you have to be credited for that, because it's not straightforward and it's very costly.
Yeah, absolutely. But I suppose, like all farm planning, and like no different than ourselves, we have to look at the end game. Yeah, absolutely, there is a substantial investment in this, but to me, I'm excited by it, because it's a great collaborative approach between the sales and milk functions within the organisation. There's been planning, there's been organisation, there's been legality hurdles, and there's been absolutely huge amounts of frustration, but really, really happy to say that we have this plan and programme in place, and this is only for the greater good of all our suppliers.
Yeah, and I just think as all those divisions you mentioned, to actually meander your way through all the red tape and all those different departments, and it's a great start for Tirlán as well. I think it's very positive on that side, you know. Yeah,
absolutely. Now, really, really looking forward to the potential results that this can deliver. So, yeah, really exciting prospect.
And the core aim here, I suppose, in my language, John, would be to tackle, you know, there's always issues in dairy. We're trying to manage cell counts, and we're trying to manage TBCs. Obviously, Termajorix is on the spike there now as well, and this can help alleviate that both on the animal, in the machine, and the whole lot as well. So it's very positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose when we looked at this as a pilot project, we were looking at the detergent regimes, but, you know, because of the impact that external bacteria on teeth can have on Termajorix, we felt it was absolutely the right decision to do it inclusive of both the tea care and dairy hygiene regimes. But, you know, it's really exciting, and it's going to be, you know, a game changer within the industry. But in the same mindset, we need to be, you know, very much aware that these products are not a silver bullet, and they have to be used in the correct manner. So, you know, hot water is still as critical, usage rate, that the grams of active are adhered to. There's a lot of automated systems on farms at the moment, so make sure that the uptake of product is actually correct. So absolutely, there's a huge amount of factors in there, and let's not rule out the human element as well. So there's always the potential there. But look,
it's all back to, like what John was saying, it's back to preventing that problem rather than curing it, overcoming those issues. Look, obviously it's from the farm to the in supply. You want good quality product going from farm to fork or whatever it is, but trying to overcome those issues and using a simple plan, a proper wash routine, going by what's advised, and that will and can overcome those issues that may be on farm.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's probably been a very, very steep learning curve for all involved in the last probably 18 months to 2 years. You know, we've gone chlorine free. Chlorine free was probably the solution to a lot of cleaning issues that were on farm as well. But, you know, like, we have a very, very skilled, trained team of milk quality advisors, and if anyone you know has a query or anything in relation to milk or plant wash routines or anything, please reach out to the local milk advisor. They're there to help and happy to help, and you know, please make use of the facility.
It's a huge resource to have, like, you know, because there's so much involved in that. Like, but John, when you think about, like, in one way, going chlorine free shows us that we can change and we can adapt and we can overcome challenges, because, like, there was, I'd say, every second lad you met in the street thought we couldn't do it, you know, but we have done it, and it takes a bit more planning. But we're probably looking at the same for dosing. There's a huge step change coming. There's a huge step change coming in fertiliser, but maybe just on the change in the prescription-based model going forward. Would you be able just to explain that in maybe your own words? Like?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's a scary statistic that was actually thrown out there when the department started to release the requirement to adjust the legislation, that more people in the year 2050 will die of antimicrobial resistance than they will of cancer. Like, that's absolutely a shocking statistic, or a shocking potential that's there. Yeah. So if you look back in the animal remedies and even the human medicine science, there has been very, very little evolvement or new products or new drugs have actually come onto the scene.
Yeah.
So in simplest layman terms that I can put it, we can't mess up what we have.
No.
The ones that we have to protect them. And when we're at our sickest or at our most vulnerable, whether that be in human or animal health, we have to be able to rely on those drugs.
Yeah.
So that's why we have to control and manage the way that we're using drugs. Like, going to the top shelf in the animal remedies pieces, like going for the Draxons of the world or these big fancy high power drugs.
The Tony Kelly.
The Tony Kellys of the world. Yeah, absolutely. How many minutes are we in, Jim? I took the first
19 minutes.
The big one.
We done well, because I spoke to another colleague in Grassland Agro this morning and I said, how long will this old crack take? And he says, it depends on how the other lad talks for Clare hurling for so long. But anyway, I think we done well to get to 19 minutes. But it's like, it's very, very serious of how we use, like, and there was a trial done then on a number of farms, and as well with 16 farms as well that were using simple ivermectin drugs. That's probably a standard drug used for killing worm burdens on farms in both injectable and pour on form, and it was found to be resistance in over 90% of those farms. Slightly small levels of resistance, but once you mention the word resistance, that percentage is only going to grow. So that's probably it's painting an ugly picture of it. And look, there is a lot of people doing a lot of good work, but we just need to get better in how we use the drug. So that's why the legislation is coming in, that basically anything that was previously an LM product, which is a licensed merchant product that you could go in and pick up off the shelf, is now becoming prescription only. So how that has to be done is, to get your prescription for that, then you can get an individual singular prescription, or if you want an annual or a longer prescription, you actually have to create what's known as a herd health plan. So that is, you have to set out the rationale and the reasoning for needing those drugs throughout the year, and that has to be backed up by evidence. So the likes of our bulk disease screening service, fecal egg counts, factory testing results, all those data driven decisions have to help the requirement and focus on the requirement for the need for a script.
Yeah, there's a huge amount in it, like, isn't there, Dave? Like,
yeah, we have to use those measures. Exactly what you said there, John. We have to use those measures to I suppose, dictate what we're going to do and how we're going to manage going forward.
But Dave, your Uncle Francis in Kilshanny, if I called to see him, we'd go out and dose cattle, and if you call 2 weeks later, you would go out and dose them with him again, the same ones, like,
yeah.
So we have been kind of, it's no wonder we've resistance, I suppose, is the first thing, and it's just getting a little bit cuter with it as well, like, and that fecal egg counting, like, we were previously using it in reverse. We're seeing that what we had used worked. Now we need to use it in advance, isn't it? Like, and
absolutely, and so such a common practice that I've seen over the years is that like, there was a requirement then in different environmental schemes there that there was a requirement for fecal egg counting, but we didn't the fecal egg count test the day that we were actually dosing them. So we kind of contradicted ourselves, like, do you know what I mean? It came back then negative, which we had them dosed anyway. Like, so it's just it's an extra visit to the yard. And go back to the same point again, then labour again, bringing the calves in again. So just when they're in, lads, we'll dose. That's the way it was. And it was convenience. And because the drugs and the doses had got that much cheaper as well. And just to go back to the point you made, John, like, how common has it been in the local Tirlán branch or in the local vet? The bullocks are in the crush. I ran down and I got the can of stuff. Like, them days are over, lads. Them days are over. Like, the way the new structure works is that you have to justify the requirement for the dosing. That in turn, then you have to get a script wrote. That then in turn goes to the NVPS, which is the National Veterinary Portal. So it goes to the cloud, comes back to the farmer via a very comprehensive text/digit code, and then he or she can go buy their product. So, like, this is really, it is a game changer. It's absolutely a game changer.
And often farmers will talk about those indicators, probably by default. Like, they might talk about scuttery cattle, or maybe shit's been a bit bubbly or something like that, and we'll dose them, worms, fluke, something anyway. But there's no consideration taken for, maybe you're after a week's rain and dry matter and grass is very low, and grass is just running through them. It could be in the spring and you just have a lot of nitrogen in the grass.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'll fire through them. Like, but it's just, look, there are indicators, but just you take them with a pinch of salt. If you can measure it, definitely the best way. And what you said there, John, is in the factory as well. When you're killing cattle, sure indicator. If there is fluke or whatever worms in the cattle, that is going to be an indication for what's coming behind them.
Absolutely. And look, no one knows their animals better than a farmer. And do we do things willy-nilly with the stock? Absolutely not. But there need to be data-driven solutions now. The use of remedies has been too easy previously to be the fall-to solution, and not always the correct solutions. That's the protocol that we need to avoid going forward.
But that piece, John, I think a lot of the listeners would get an awful lot out of it, because you go back to what you said, the 80% weren't fully aware. It's going to have
massive.
Yeah, isn't it?
And the resistance piece, I know, and the two of them together, it's some story.
Yeah, but even it just we're probably in the same boat with the fertilizer register, lads. It's probably the same, maybe understanding, because which is a scary reality, So no, it's a lot of change is definitely coming. Some of it is going to be met with a lot of resistance, because a lot of farmers feel like, that they're doing enough paperwork already.
But what we do find, John, and we look back at all the changes that have come, once the story is clear to the farmer, and that's down to maybe us in Grasnagor, down to the department, down to Tirlán, and we all have the story and we can explain and educate, they do change fierce fast when it's explained clearly and laid out to them.
There's no one more dynamic than farmers to come up to a challenge. But I suppose from the Grasnagor point of view, and I suppose we have to be there to support farmers. Tirlán are doing it as well. That's very important, in what we do in our day to day,
Yeah, and there's a certain element here where farmers are actually backed into a corner, and it's gas like that. As I said, that we had that 80% of people didn't know the impact it had. But within Tirlán, we created our own herd health program, where we created the opportunity for people to get long-term prescriptions to be able to avail of the medicines that they required, and we were doing this in conjunction and partnership with local vets and so on and so forth. And when we put that message out to farmers, we'd over 1,100 applications within a relatively short period of time of people looking to participate in the scheme. So once it was, exactly to your point, James, once it was explained and the detail and the requirement going forward, they got on board pretty quick.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal.
And John, you're part-time farming here as well. Do you want to talk about that? What are you at?
Yeah, sure. I suppose my labour of love is beef for my sins, and I suppose then just to keep the bills paid then as well, we do a bit of contract so no, it's a small setup here. We're just 45 acres, very very simple setup, and so we do we bring in calves as well. We do a calf to beef system, so it's predominantly Angus heifer calves. We bring them all the way to beef, and we do the contract rearing then as well. So roughly run about 80 calves across the spring, and then about 40 across the autumn, and all the beef animals then brought all the way to beef.
Brilliant, yeah.
That's a phenomenal amount of stock though. When you add up all that, there is a phenomenal amount of stock, and your output is very impressive. No, not to be promoting it, because it hurts me to be praising you too much, but there is a phenomenal output here on the farm.
I know you came with that comment after you slipped another purple snack into your pocket there as well. So it's Look, we put an emphasis on growing grass here, you know what I mean. So we tried to keep the inputs to a minimal, and we've done that in the last couple of years, and we've kind of engaged in the programs with the soil nutrition program through Grassland Agro. And I call out probably to yourself, John, which kind of hurts me inside a little bit to do that, but in particular to yourself and to Lauren, they've been a great benefit to the farm and the setup here. We try to grow as much grass and utilise it. The output has been good here in the last number of years as well, and that probably, it's a bittersweet in such ways as well, is that the output has been good here. The kilos of beef are probably somewhere around 3.6 tonnes to the hectare over the last couple of years, which we're probably quite happy with. But I suppose the killing part about that is with the pending legislation with nitrates, sustainability, banding, all that kind of good stuff, that effectively has the opportunity to have the output of the farm here. So absolutely is everything 100% here? Most definitely not. But we try to do the things as right as we can and adhere to the guidelines put in part. So I suppose just generality of guidelines mightn't be the best practice for the country as a whole, but absolutely do I have an answer or solution to that? I don't. So I can understand how it's implemented also.
Yeah, but like, sure, like if you think of like all the measures that you've used, like you've got your lime up, you're reseeding, you're using protected urea, you've incorporated clover very successfully, which is a serious going over. Like, you know, you're doing more clover. Like, we're doing a lot of the environmental piece here as well as getting the output. You know, which is a bit of a frustration, understandably, but the nitrates is going to cause some headache, John, for an awful lot of farmers.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's probably something similar to the veterinary legislation piece. I think a lot of people are familiar with the words banding, are familiar with the words nitrates, but have they actually sat down and done the back of a fag box calculation to the impact that it's having on the individual farms? I firmly believe they don't, and you know, you hear kind of silly things of land at 5.30 and 40 an acre by way of creating a solution to maybe some lads just diluting the thing. I'm not so sure that's the answer either.
Doesn't solve the problem. We were down launching the project there, the Future Science project with UCC and Dave Wall and Mick and all them, and we were just chatting away. We were in a real fancy room, Dave. Didn't suit us. There was a lot of the, you know, UCC lads wandering around, you know, with the
no cameras allowed in there.
What are the elbow pads, you know, and that kind of jackets. But like, it's not going to solve the problem. Like, you know, diluting the number of cows over a larger area isn't going to do anything really. Like, you know, so that's a challenge. And
but you can see like what potentially can be done. Like, John, your output of 3.6 ton, little inputs, predominantly off grass, mostly off grass, like savage potential.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I suppose just to call out, and it's not just because the collective group is around the table here, you know, that probably didn't happen overnight. Like, the farm has been fully reseeded over nearly a 10-year period. But what I really got, probably, you know, I won't say we're at fine tuning stage, because we still have seismic steps to take in a lot of areas, but you know, it's a credit to the Grassland Agro team, and I'd encourage all people that, you know, it's always good to get a bit of critical analysis, you know, and support from the structures, the Tirláns and the Grassland Agros of the world, because I found myself, I was probably overcritical of the system and the potential output here. And it's good to get reassurance and for people to challenge. Clover wasn't on the radar for me until the guys came in here and explained the features and benefits in it. We're going down the multi-species sport this year to give that a try, just to kind of to bring a bit of, you know, variability and additional output to the farm as well. So it's really good to talk to the people in the industry and to get additional voices of and opinions, do you know what I mean, to know what might work. People have seen other things in other farms that can be implemented and can be beneficial.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, John. And John, we're just nearly tight in time, but there's one thing I wanted to ask you. Your fellow parishioner, Enda MacDonald, was he involved in the schmozzle between Arlis, Killeen and Collection, or can you confirm or deny what role he played in that?
Yeah, I at the risk of maybe potentially losing a friend and gaining an enemy, maybe we best avoid by that. But in fairness to Enda, he's been probably, you know, clutching to that playing status now for a while. Like, you know, I think it's you know, tugging out now, I think is probably yeah.
You got surgery during the week, you was telling me there. You got the hernia done.
Well, I can guarantee you wherever
we thought it was a different type of surgery now, but
wherever he got it, didn't get it on his neck anyway. So that's one thing I can confirm.
Sure, it's made out of concrete.
Absolutely.
Enda's our group head of the commodity division on the business, and you also knock around with his brother as well, Paul.
Absolutely,
he was the best footballer out of them. Is that?
He's the hardest worker as well, seemingly.
Absolutely, yeah. Paul is a similar vintage to myself, and in fairness, his playing career extended and expanded a lot longer than mine ever did. Whatever, but no, and a tenacious cornerback, and you know, had a very good career with Laois football. And I just fondly remember. I remember there was a number of ding dong battles between himself and Matty Ford over the years. So not
they're the glory days.
Nothing spared by either sides. No,
but Mick O'Dwyer days. Yeah. And come here, Enda was telling me, I rang him. I just said I do a bit of homework. He said you were a mighty man to kick a free as well, John.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know about that nowadays. I'd say I let down the team more often than I got them over the line now, whatever. But never had much football to me, but it was always, you know, when you can rely, who'll turn up. John will be there anyway. So.
John is reliable.
Absolutely.
He was consistent anyway.
Sure, he's only a part-time farmer. He's always available.
Exactly. So when you're stuck for bodies, I was reasonably reliable, but what I'd offer on the pitch could be questionable enough.
John, before we wrap up, any final thoughts you'd like to go through? Or did you cover everything?
Yeah, no, I think we've probably gone a bit of a whirlwind there, I suppose. Look, I find it a really nice mix, that kind of working within the industry and talking to different people, and then kind of it's a I really enjoy the farming element of it for myself, even though it's only in a part-time element. I'm quite passionate about what we do, and we try bring it to the next level and try to do as much as we can on the farm as we can. So it's I really like it. Is the agri industry is actually a relatively small industry. There's when you reach out to other companies, there's actually not that many people working within the, and a really friendly receiving group of
community.
people. Absolutely. So yeah, I really enjoy it, and I find the mix between both quite enjoyable.
Brilliant.
I suppose, look, what are we trying to say is that, I just try to encourage people that if I go back and ask the New Zealand rugby team always had a kind of a great analogy that you do everything 1% better the next day than you did previously, you know what I mean? Yeah. So if we don't strive to success and try to kind of do something a little bit different, well, then you're standing still, and to me, if you're standing still, you're going backwards, unfortunately. So I kind of have a thing that a kind of philosophy that I do around the place. So it's kind of do one thing on your farm every week that makes it a better place to farm, and equally as important, a safer place to farm. And if you do that, then I think you'll always see progress.
On that note, John, and thanks very much for coming on. This was actually fantastic. Mind yourselves out there. Farm smart, farm safe. Hey, thanks for listening to the Sod Pod. We hope you enjoyed it. To find out more, head over to www.grasslandagro.ie or check out our social channels: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn and YouTube. That's all for this episode. See you next time.